What if the largest excavator on Earth never truly stops eating because we refuse to let it? The Bagger 293 has chewed through German soil almost without pause since 1995. Not because it cannot stop, because stopping it costs more than keeping it alive. We built something so enormous that the word stop lost its meaning. And somewhere in that fact lives a question none of us asked before we flipped the switch. If one machine can reshape geography, what does that say about the civilization that built it? We keep the Bagger 293 moving through 240,000 cubic meters every day. That volume could bury the Empire State Building in under an hour. We designed this 45,000-ton giant to master the Earth itself. The Bagger's ceaseless work quietly shows the cost of treating nature as fuel we can never stop consuming. We will follow this machine from its first blueprint to its moral indictment. Birth, hunger, consequence. The Bagger is our organism, and its life mirrors something uncomfortable about our own. What drives a nation to dream of a machine that outweighs a city block? Desperation after total war. When World War II ended, West Germany was rubble. Factories gone, infrastructure gone. A population still needed heat, still needed power, still needed a reason to believe recovery was possible. Lignite coal was the answer. Soft, brown, and abundant beneath the Rhineland. It burned dirty, but it burned. Demand outpaced every existing machine. Engineers at Krupp refused to accept the shortfall. Through the 1950 and 60, they built one generation, then the next, each time larger. They asked how much steel could hold, how wide a chassis could run, how deep a bucket could reach. The escalation was deliberate and sustained. Then came the specification that ended every argument. 96 meters tall, 225 meters long, 45,000 metric tons. The Bagger 293 was not an improvement. It was a different category of object. When you design past every known boundary, you quietly bury certain assumptions to make the math work. Stand beside it, and the ground shifts before you see the full outline. The bucket wheel alone spans 21.6 meters. 18 buckets ride its rim, each holding 15 cubic meters. 12 crawlers, each taller than a two-story house, carry the mass forward. The frame stretches 225 meters and rises 96 meters high. Every joint creaks, yet the structure keeps advancing as if the earth were expected to give way without complaint. We watched the Bagger 293 roll into the Hambach mine in 1995. Within months, the horizon flattened. Whole villages moved so the excavator could keep its line. The hole reached past 400 meters and kept widening. What kind of machine cannot afford to rest? Shut it down, and thermal stresses warp the precision fittings that took months to calibrate. Lubrication for 60,000 moving parts needs constant circulation. Let the oil stratify and restart. Becomes weeks of inspection and recertification work that can cost tens of millions. The economics were designed this way on purpose. The machine only makes sense at full scale, continuously. Idle hours are existential losses. The system locked itself into perpetual motion, not by accident, but by design. What does it do to a person to spend a career feeding a machine that never sleeps? Roughly 5 operators run each shift, watching more than 600 sensors. Families have now done this for 3 generations. Grandfathers guided earlier machines, fathers trained on the 293, and sons now monitor the same panels. Their lives shaped themselves around its unbroken appetite. In 1997, Germany signed the Kyoto Protocol. In that same decade, the Hambach mine kept expanding. Both commitments were true at once, the signed protocol and the expanding mine. We promised the atmosphere one future while digging ourselves deeper into another. Lignite releases more carbon per unit of energy than any other fossil fuel. The Hambach complex and its associated power plants emit roughly 100 million tons of CO2 every year. The Hambach forest stood for 12,000 years. We reduced it from around 4,000 hectares to roughly 200. We drained aquifers that took centuries to fill to keep the pit dry. We asked the machine to do this. We kept asking. Then, in 2018, thousands of activists entered the remaining forest and refused to leave. Their presence turned routine clearing into a standoff. A single injunction stopped the chainsaws. For weeks, the excavator sat idle, not because of mechanical failure, but because collective will placed itself in its path. The pause did not last, and operations resumed. Even so, the interruption showed that momentum this large can be checked, if only briefly, when enough of us choose to stand where the next cut would fall. Germany set 2038 as the final year for lignite. Then, RWE agreed to close Hambach by 2030. Right now, the machine is still running at full capacity. Every rotation pulls lignite from a seam that carries an expiration date. The operators know it, the engineers know it, the accountants know it. Yet the bagger moves as though the calendar says nothing. That is not negligence, it is economics. The infrastructure to replace that energy is still being built. Demand does not pause while the grid catches up. If the machine has fewer than a decade left, what exactly are we defending when we keep it running at maximum output? The jobs, the constant baseline electricity supply, and also the habit of extraction itself. The assumption that the ground still owes us something. The Bagger 293 never malfunctioned. It never went rogue. It is performing exactly as intended. Every bucket rotation, every ton loaded, every plume from the cooling towers downstream is the precise result of choices we made. 80 years of choices, renewed every decade, and embedded into contracts, grids, and heating systems across a continent. We built this. We are the beast, not the machine. The machine is simply the clearest expression of an appetite we designed entire civilizations around. We told ourselves the ground was a resource, not a limit, that extraction was progress, not a loan with interest. We built infrastructure so large and so deeply interwoven that stopping it became genuinely unthinkable. That is a system working as designed. The Bagger 293 never stops because we built a world that cannot afford to let it stop. We knew. We always knew. Hundreds of bucket wheel excavators now carve the same path across the continents. Each one reflects the same choice, to call the planet a supply that never runs dry. We keep feeding them because the systems we built demand it. The real question still lingers. How much is truly enough? The Bagger 293 will run again tomorrow. Thousands like it will run with it. We can keep watching it as someone else's problem, or we can finally reckon with being the system that keeps the bucket turning.